Okay, so this is Let It Die. I have played this before on my PlayStation, but the controls are probably gonna be like super bad. I've never played like a fighting game on my computer, so we're just gonna, try it out and see how it goes, I suppose. So,
A few moments later.
um, I've died more times than I can count, so I think we need to let it die. Let's take the title of the game and we'll take it literally. I'm literally gonna answer the title of the game. Murakami once said, "Death is not the opposite of life, but a part of it," which captured a sentiment that resonates deeply within the world of video games, particularly in the action roguelike game Let It Die. Developed by Grasshopper Manufacture and directed by Suda51, Let It Die stands out not only for its challenging gameplay, but also for its profound engagement with the concept of death. Set in a post-apocalyptic world dominated by the perilous Tower of Barbs.
What's your name, P.O.B., so they calling you Bob? Stop playing, you know that I'm known for the Bob.
The game compels players to face mortality head-on through its brutal permadeath mechanics and darkly humorous narrative. In Let It Die, death is more than a mere game mechanic. It is a central theme that permeates every aspect of the player's experience. Unlike many games where death is a temporary setback, here it represents a significant loss, both in terms of progress and personal investment. Players must navigate the tower with caution, knowing that a single mistake could lead to the permanent demise of their character. This relentless focus on the finality of death creates an atmosphere of tension and urgency, forcing players to adopt strategic thinking and resilience. The character of Uncle Death, the game's skateboarding Grim Reaper, serves as both guide and symbol of the game's unique take on mortality. His playful yet ominous presence underscores the game's dual nature, a blend of dark humour and existential dread. Through Uncle Death and other narrative elements, Let It Die challenges players to reflect on their mortality and the impermanence of their achievements. This video essay will explore how Let It Die philosophically handles the concept of death, examining its gameplay mechanics, thematic depth, and the emotional and existential impact on players. By delving into these aspects, we will uncover how the game not only entertains, but also provokes deeper thought about the nature of life and death. In video games, death is not merely an end, but a crucial component that shapes the player's experience and interaction with the game world. From the early days of arcade machines to the modern era of complex, narrative-driven titles, the concept of death has evolved significantly, reflecting broader trends in game design and player expectations. Understanding how death functions in games and its philosophical implications provide a foundational context for exploring how Let It Die approaches this concept uniquely. The treatment of death in video games varies widely across genres, each with its own conventions and expectations. In traditional platformers such as Super Mario Bros., death is a common occurrence. Here, death acts as a temporary setback, sending the player back to a checkpoint or the beginning of a level. The consequence of dying is usually just losing progress, but the player typically has infinite attempts to overcome the challenge. This approach to death fosters a learning process where players improve their skills through repetition and practice, eventually mastering the game's mechanics. In contrast, action-adventure games like The Legend of Zelda often incorporate a more narrative-driven approach to death. While players still face setbacks, the emphasis is placed on the journey and the exploration. Death can result in the loss of resources or progress, but the game typically provides ample opportunities for recovery and continues the story without severe penalties. This balances the challenge of gameplay with the continuity of the narrative, ensuring that players remain engaged with the unfolding plot. Role-playing games, or simply RPGs, such as Final Fantasy or The Elder Scrolls, offer another perspective on death. In many RPGs, death can be a significant event with lasting consequences. Characters might lose experience points, valuable items, or face permanent death, altering the course of the story and the player's strategy. Some RPGs, particularly those with a focus on realism and immersion, implement permadeath, where a character's death is final and irreversible. This creates a heightened sense of tension and investment, as players must carefully consider their actions and the risks involved. The roguelike genre takes the concept of death to an extreme, making it a core mechanic of the gameplay. In roguelikes such as Rogue, the game that actually coined the term, and more modern iterations like The Binding of Isaac, Hades, or Enter the Gungeon, death is a fundamental aspect of the player's experience. These games typically feature procedurally generated levels, ensuring that each playthrough is unique. When a player dies, they lose all progress and must start over from the beginning. This harsh penalty encourages players to adapt, learn from their mistakes, and develop strategies to survive longer in each subsequent attempt. The cycle of death and rebirth becomes a central theme, mirroring philosophical ideas about perseverance and growth through adversity. A notable example of a game that masterfully integrates death into its core design is Dark Souls. Developed by From Software, Dark Souls is renowned for its punishing difficulty and intricate world building. Death in Dark Souls is inevitable and very, very frequent, but is also a learning tool. Each death teaches the player something new about the game's mechanics, enemy patterns, or environmental hazards. The game uses a unique system called souls, which act as both currency and experience points. When a player dies, they drop their accumulated souls at the location of their death. They have one chance to revive them. If they die again before reaching that spot, the souls are lost forever. This system adds yet another layer of risk and reward, making each decision and encounter more meaningful. The looming threat of permanent loss creates a sense of dread and tension, but also elicits feelings of triumph and accomplishment when overcome. In Let It Die, death is not just a possibility, it is a central mechanic that shapes the entire gameplay experience. The game's approach to death is designed to be both a challenge and a learning opportunity for players. Unlike many games where death is a temporary setback, Let It Die treats death as a significant event with lasting consequences. The permadeath mechanic means that when a character dies, the player loses that character and all the progress made with them. This system forces players to approach the game with caution, strategy, and a willingness to learn from their mistakes. The permadeath system in Let It Die is one of the most defining features. When a character dies, they are permanently dead, and the player must start over with a new character. This mechanic adds a level of tension and stakes to the gameplay that is often absent in games with more forgiving death systems. Every encounter, decision, and mistake is magnified with the knowledge that one wrong move could result in the loss of all progress. It's not just about losing a character, it also involves losing the equipment, resources, and experience points that the character had accumulated throughout the game. This loss can be devastating, especially if a player has invested significant time and effort into developing a character. However, this high-stakes system also makes success all the more rewarding. Overcoming a difficult challenge or reaching a new milestone feels more significant because of the risk involved. While permadeath is a core mechanic, Let It Die offers some ways for players to mitigate the impact of losing a character. One of these is the concept of death data. When a character dies, their data is stored, and the players have the option to retrieve it under certain conditions. This retrieval system adds a layer of strategy to the game, as players must decide whether to risk attempting to recover their lost data or to cut their losses and start anew. The retrieval process is not straightforward and often involves revisiting the location where the character died. These can be challenging as the area may be filled with tough enemies or environmental hazards. Additionally, the game sometimes sends haters, which are hostile versions of the player's dead characters, to attack the player. Defeating these haters can be a way to recover some of the lost resources, but also presents a significant risk. The permadeath and retrieval mechanisms in Let It Die fundamentally shape the way players approach the game. Unlike games where players can afford to be reckless or experiment without consequences, Let It Die requires careful planning and consideration. Players must constantly weigh the risks and rewards of their actions, knowing that a single mistake can result in significant loss. One of the key strategic elements is resource management. In Let It Die, resources such as weapons, armor, and healing items are limited. Players must decide when to use these resources and when to conserve them. This decision-making process is crucial, as using up resources too quickly can leave a player vulnerable, while being too conservative can make it difficult to progress. Another important aspect is combat strategy. The game's combat system is designed to be challenging, with enemies that can deal significant damage and require precise timing to defeat. Players must learn the attack pattern and weaknesses of different enemies, and develop strategies to defeat them. This often involves a process of trial and error, where players learn from their deaths and use that knowledge to improve their performance. The game also shares some similarities with other roguelikes, particularly in its use of permadeath and procedural generation. However, there are also significant differences that set it apart. While many roguelikes have a fantasy or sci-fi theme, Let It Die is set in a dystopian, post-apocalyptic world with a dark and surreal atmosphere. This unique setting adds to the game's sense of danger and unpredictability. Another difference is the game's combat system. While many roguelikes use turn-based combat, Let It Die features real-time, action-orientated combat. This makes the game more fast-paced and requires quick reflexes and precise timing. The combination of permadeath and real-time combat creates a unique challenge that sets Let It Die apart from any other game in the genre. Let It Die stands out in the roguelike genre by combining deep philosophical themes with engaging gameplay mechanics. Its approach to death is both harsh and rewarding, encouraging players to embrace failure as a path to growth and mastery. Through its death mechanics, Let It Die offers a unique and thought-provoking exploration of mortality, resilience, and the human condition. Let It Die presents a darkly humorous and philosophically rich exploration of death. It uses its narrative and characters to delve into themes of mortality, resilience, and the human condition. This section will explore specifically how Let It Die thematically handles death through its narrative context, character analysis, and symbolic elements, offering a unique perspective on this timeless and universal subject. The story of the game unfolds in a dystopian future where a catastrophic tectonic event has devastated the Earth, leading to the emergence of the Tower of Barbs. This massive, ever-changing structure beckons adventurers to climb its perilous floors, each level more dangerous than the last. The ultimate goal is to reach the top, but few survive the journey. The Tower of Barbs itself is a powerful symbol of humanity's relentless pursuit of meaning and achievement, despite the inevitable presence of death at every turn. At the heart of this narrative is the player's journey. Starting as a nameless and faceless character, players must ascend the tower, confronting numerous dangers and adversaries. The process of climbing the tower mirrors the existential journey of life, filled with challenges, setbacks, and moments of triumph. Each death within the tower represents a significant thematic element, underscoring the fragility of life and omnipresence of mortality. Key characters in Let It Die play crucial roles in conveying the game's themes of death and survival. Among these characters, Uncle Death stands out as a central figure. He is a Grim Reaper-like character who serves as the player's guide and mentor throughout their journey. His appearance is striking, with a skeletal visage, a scythe, and a skateboard, blending traditional death imagery with modern, irreverent elements. This juxtaposition reflects the game's dark humour and its unique take on the concept of death. His character is multifaceted. On one hand, he embodies the inevitability of death, a constant companion who reminds players of their mortality. On the other hand, his playful demeanour and supportive nature provides a sense of comfort and camaraderie. He encourages players to keep pushing forward despite the numerous deaths they will inevitably experience. This duality in his character highlights the game's philosophical stance. While death is an unavoidable part of life, it should not be feared but embraces a natural aspect of existence. Another significant character is Mei Jin, the eccentric figure who provides players with essential information about the tower and its challenges. Mei Jin presents the quest for knowledge and understanding in the face of the unknown. Their role is crucial in helping players navigate the dangers of the Tower of Barbs, symbolising the human desire to make sense of the world and find meaning in the midst of chaos and death. The symbolism in Let It Die is rich and multifaceted, with death serving as a central motif throughout the game. The Tower of Barbs itself is a powerful symbol, representing the structure of life's journey, filled with obstacles and challenges that must be overcome. Each floor of the tower presents a new level of difficulty, mirroring the stages of life and the increasing complexity of the challenges we face as we grow older. The frequent deaths that players experience in the game are not just setbacks but integral parts of the journey. Each death serves a reminder of the impermanence of life and the importance of resilience. The game encourages players to learn from each death, to adapt their strategies, and to keep pushing forward. This aligns with the philosophical concept of amour fati, or love of fate, which suggests that we should embrace our fate, including our suffering and death, as necessary components of our existence. The game's use of death data and the ability to retrieve fallen characters also adds a layer of symbolism. When a player character dies, their data remains within the game world, allowing other players to encounter and battle them. This mechanic symbolises the idea that our actions and legacies continue to influence the world, even after we are gone. It underscores the interconnectedness of human experiences and the impact we have on each other's lives, even in death. Furthermore, the game's aesthetic and design choices create its thematic exploration of death. The dark, gritty visuals of the Tower of Barbs create an atmosphere of desolation and danger, emphasising the harsh reality of the world the characters inhabit. The music and sound design further enhance this atmosphere, with eerie and haunting tracks that evoke a sense of foreboding and inevitability. This auditory landscape serves to immerse players in the game's thematic world, making the experience of death and survival more visceral and impactful. The narrative structure of the game also plays a crucial role in its thematic exploration of death. The game does not follow a linear storyline, but instead presents a series of fragmented, episodic encounters that players piece together as they progress. This non-linear approach mirrors the unpredictability of life and the fragmented nature of human experiences. It reinforces the idea that death is a constant presence, weaving through the narrative and shaping the player's journey. The philosophical implications of Let It Die are profound, inviting players to reflect on the nature of death and its role in shaping human existence. The game encourages players to confront their fears and anxieties about death head-on, to see it not as an end but as a transition and an integral part of the journey. This perspective aligns with the existentialist philosophy, politically the ideas of thinkers like Jean-Paul Sartre and Albert Camus, who argued that the awareness of death can lead to a more authentic and meaningful life. Death is not a failure but an opportunity for growth and learning. Each death provides valuable insights and lessons that players can use to improve their strategies and approach to the game. This iterative process of dying and learning reflects the broader human experience, where setbacks and failures are seen as opportunities for personal development and resilience. It encourages players to adopt a mindset of continuous improvement, to embrace challenges, and to persevere in the face of adversity. The game's treatment of death also resonates with the concept of memento mori, a Latin phrase meaning remember that you must die. This concept has been explored in various philosophical and artistic traditions, reminding individuals of their mortality and encouraging them to live fully and authentically. In Let It Die, the constant presence of death serves as memento mori, urging players to remain mindful of their actions and choices, to appreciate the fleeting nature of life, and to find meaning in their journey through the Tower of Barbs. The game offers a rich and nuanced exploration of death, using its narrative, characters, and symbolism to delve into themes of mortality, resilience, and the human condition. The game's dark humour, coupled with its philosophical depth, creates a unique and thought-provoking experience that challenges players to confront their fears and embrace the inevitability of death. By examining the thematic elements of Let It Die, we gain a deeper understanding of how video games can serve as powerful mediums for exploring complex and existential questions, ultimately enriching our appreciation of both the game and the broader human experience. Now, we're going to go deeper into the philosophical implication of Let It Die because it's rich and multifaceted, inviting players to ponder deeper existential questions through its mechanics and narrative. One of the central philosophical lenses through which the game can be examined is existentialism, a philosophy that grapples with the meaning of life in the face of an inherently indifferent or absurd universe. Let It Die embodies existentialist themes through its relentless emphasis on survival, choice, and the perpetual cycle of life and death. At the core of existentialist thought is the idea that existence precedes essence, meaning that individuals are not born with a predetermined purpose, but must instead create their own meaning through their actions and choices. In Let It Die, players are thrust into the Tower of Barbs with no inherent purpose other than to climb, survive, and gather resources. This mirrors the existentialist notion that life has no intrinsic meaning and is up to the individual to carve out their own path and significance. Each player's journey through the tower is unique, shaped by their decisions, strategies, and perseverance. The game's permadeath mechanic further reinforces existentialist themes by emphasizing the transient and precarious nature of existence. Each time a player dies, they lose their character and must start over, symbolizing the constant presence of mortality and the inevitability of death. The mechanic echoes the existentialist recognition of life's fragility and the importance of living authentically in the face of death. The knowledge that death is permanent in Let It Die compels players to approach life with care, strategy, and a heightened awareness of their mortality. We've already covered Memento Mori previously, which is another philosophical concept deeply embedded in Let It Die, but I want to talk a bit more about Nietzsche. Nietzsche's concept of the eternal recurrence, the idea that one must live life as if they would relive it over and over for eternity, also finds resonance in Let It Die. Players repeatedly face the same challenges, the same enemies, and the same risks with each new character, creating a cyclical experience that forces them to confront their choices and strategies continually. This mechanic can be seen as a metaphor for Nietzsche's challenge to live fully and authentically, embracing each moment as if it will recur infinitely. The game's dark humour and irreverent tone also contribute to the philosophical depth of the game. Characters like Uncle Death inject a sense of absurdity into the game, reminiscent of Albert Camus' philosophy of the absurd. Camus argued that the search for meaning in an indifferent universe is inherently absurd, yet he also argued that one must imagine Sisyphus happy, finding joy and purpose in the struggle itself. Let It Die embodies this absurdist philosophy by juxtaposing its brutal difficulty and grim setting with humorous and surreal elements, encouraging players to find enjoyment and meaning in the challenge and chaos. In conclusion, Let It Die challenges players to confront the inevitability of death, both in its gameplay mechanics and thematic elements. Through its unique permadeath system and the relentless ascent of the Tower of Barbs, the game immerses players in a cycle of death and rebirth that mirrors existential struggles and philosophical inquiries into mortality. The game's narrative, characterized by eccentric characters like Uncle Death and its dystopian setting, adds layers of depth to its exploration of death. Uncle Death, with his playful demeanour and omnipresence throughout the game, serves not only as a guide but as a reminder of the game's underlying philosophy. His persona embodies the game's dark humour and serves as a reflection of the absurdity and unpredictability of life itself. From a gameplay perspective, Let It Die demands resilience and adaptation from players. Each death is a learning experience, pushing players to strategize, improve their skills, and explore new approaches to overcome the tower's challenges. This iterative process of trial and error mirrors existentialist themes of personal growth through adversity and the pursuit of meaning in the face of inevitable setbacks. Philosophically, Let It Die aligns with existentialist principles that emphasize individual agency, choice, and the struggle to find meaning in a seemingly indifferent universe. Players are constantly reminded of their mortality through the game's memento mori motifs, urging them to contemplate the fleeting nature of life and the impermanence of achievements. In exploring these themes, Let It Die invites players to ponder deeper existential questions about life, death, and the human condition. It challenges conventional gaming norms by turning death from a setback into a fundamental aspect of gameplay and narrative progression. By confronting players with the reality of death and encouraging them to persevere despite its inevitability, the game prompts reflection on resilience, perseverance, and the pursuit of meaning in the face of adversity. Ultimately, Let It Die stands as a testament to how video games can serve as vehicles for philosophical exploration. Through its mechanics, narrative, and thematic depth, the game invites players to engage not only with its gameplay challenges, but also with broader existential inquiries. It challenges players to embrace the transient nature of life, to find meaning in a struggle, and to recognize the value of perseverance and adaptation in the face of uncertainty. As players navigate the Tower of Barbs and grapple with the cycle of life and death, Let It Die leaves them with a poignant reminder. In the game, as in life, it is not the inevitability of death that defines us, but rather how we choose to confront and navigate its challenges that truly matter.